This is the Evil Never Dies podcast with Brett and Carl. This podcast may contain adult themes, violence, and strong language. Listener discretion is advised.
The Evil Never Dies podcast.
Welcome back to the Evil Never Dies podcast. This is episode 206.
206. That's a lot of episodes.
It is, ain't it?
And it took us 206 episodes to finally get into the meat of a real Hammer Films Dracula movie. Now, we did that Bride of Dracula, which has become our biggest, most watched episode of all time. A couple other Hammer films we did were not very well watched or received. So let's see what happens when we cover this Hammer film.
All right.
This is the 1958 Dracula, which would be known in the United States as the horror of Dracula. And I don't know why. What?
Horror.
Horror.
Yep.
Shut up, Brett. You're talking bad. I don't know why they decided to not call this just Dracula, because at some point, in some way, Universal was involved in it, which they are no longer involved in it. But either way, in the United States, it is known as the horror of Dracula.
It must have been, they must have distributed it first when it first came out.
Well, it was when Universal and International had merged.
Yeah.
But it is now owned exclusively in the United States by Warner Brothers. So I've never understood that part of this, how it went from Universal to Warner Brothers. And if Universal had a role in it, why it was not called Dracula, I don't know. Would have been a better name.
Yep. All right.
The horror of Dracula just seems sort of misleading to me. But here we are.
All
Finally,
right.
the very first Dracula movie from Hammer Films.
And it was directed by Terrence Fisher.
The infamous Terrence Fisher.
Screenplay by Jimmy Sangster. Based on Dracula by Bram Stoker.
Can I cut in a minute?
Sure.
Actually, it was based on a play that was adapted from Bram Stoker's Dracula. This was adapted from the play. So it's a whole different story than some of the other Dracula movies. Anyway, back to Brett.
All right. Produced by Anthony Hines. Cinematography by Jack Asher. Edited by Bill Lenny. Music by James Bernard. And this had an excellent score in it, by the way.
Definitely.
Just the opening three notes, that dun dun dun, your classic.
I've actually got it on CD.
Okay, cool. Why does that not surprise me?
I don't know, but it shouldn't.
Color process was Technicolor.
Which looked really good.
Yeah, it was like one of the first Hammer films they used Technicolor in.
We'll talk about the Blu-ray a little bit later, and not so great results there.
Production company, of course, is Hammer Film Productions. Distributed by Rank Film Distributors in the UK and Universal International in the United States and internationally.
And now owned by Warner Brothers for some damn reason.
It was released on May 7th, 1958 in the U.S. in Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
In Milwaukee?
Yep, they chose Milwaukee to open the film.
Sort of an odd location to open a Dracula film, I would think.
Middle of the country.
I guess.
Why? Released on May 21st, 1958 in London.
So this came out in the United States before it did in England. I never knew that.
Yes, it did.
Weird.
Had a running time of 82 minutes. Country of origin is the United Kingdom. English language. Budget is £81,412, which I couldn't tell you how much that is in US dollars. Have no clue. Made 3.5 million worldwide in rentals alone.
And rentals alone?
Yep. So
that's sort of strange.
So I have no idea how much.
I don't know what the box office on this thing is.
Nope. So you're probably close up there to 5 mil, probably, I'd say, for back in the day.
Well, obviously it was a hit because there's a whole string of sequels to follow. So Hammer must have been happy with the box office results of this thing. And it's definitely critically acclaimed.
Yes, it is. All right, let's go over the cast here. First off, we got Peter Cushing as Dr. Van Helsing. And was this the first time he played Van Helsing?
Yeah, this is the first Dracula movie of the series, so definitely the first.
Okay.
He did play Frankenstein prior in the Frankenstein Hammer movie.
Yeah, we reviewed that.
We did, and Christopher Lee played the monster, Frankenstein's monster. So this is the second time Peter Cushing and Christopher Lee were in a Hammer film of this magnitude together.
Okay. Next, we got Christopher Lee, Sir Christopher Lee, as Count Dracula. Next, we got Michael Gough as Arthur Holmwood,
better known as Alfred from the Michael Keaton Batman movies for us younglings like me.
Melissa Stribling as Mina Holmwood, Carol Marsh as Lucy Holmwood, John Van Eisen as Jonathan Harker.
Sort of a creepy guy.
Yeah, he was.
Yeah, he played a creepy role in this.
Valerie Gaunt as Vampire Woman.
Yeah, that's about all she was known as.
Yep. What, she just had like one line in the movie. That was it.
Yeah, help me, free me.
Olga Dickey as Gerda. Janina Fay as Tanya. Charles Lloyd Pack as Dr. Seward. George Merritt as police officer. George Woodbridge as the landlord. George Benson as the frontier official. Miles Mallison as the undertaker. Jeffrey Bailden as Porter. Barbara Archer as Inga. And Paul Cole as the lad.
The guy that played the Undertaker was sort of comedic. I thought he did a good job.
Yeah.
The landlord come off as a jerk because he's like, I'm forced to give you a meal, but that doesn't mean I want you here, talking to Dr. Van Helsing.
Yeah, I know. That's crazy. All right, Carl, why don't you go over the plot of this?
Okay, like I said, this is actually based on the play of Dracula, so it follows a different story than some of the other Dracula movies. So hold on a minute. What happened to my computer? I just got something pop up on it. I don't know what it is. There we go. We're back to normal now. Sorry about that. So the how the movie starts, of course, it's like many of the others. You have Jonathan Harker showing up to the castle Dracula. And he's supposed to be the librarian, but the twist of fate is he's actually a vampire hunter. And he is very well aware that Count Dracula is the infamous vampire Dracula, and he's there to hunt Dracula. But that vampire woman you mentioned in the credits soon puts a kind of a mess into his whole thing, and Dracula reveals himself pretty early to Jonathan Harker, and things go to crap. And they're fighting within the first, like, literally 5 minutes, 10 minutes of the movie, which will eventually lead to Dr. Van Helsing coming to look for his friend Jonathan Harker. and would lead to Dracula coming to seek revenge upon Van Helsing and Harker's family and seeking out Lucy and Mina, who apparently are sisters in this. I don't know. Sort of a weird, different take on the Dracula storyline that does work quite effectively.
All right.
Again, no spoilers. We don't spoil movies around here unless Bubba spoils them, which is 90% of the time.
All right. You ready for some trivia?
Not really.
Not really.
Yeah, let's go for it.
2007, this movie was selected for preservation by the BFI, but it wasn't until 2011 that an extended print, including a longer version of the disintegration sequence, was discovered by the National Film Center in Tokyo, Japan. How long could a disintegration sequence go on?
For a while, actually, in this case.
Okay.
He disintegrates. Yeah, it takes a while for him to disintegrate. Yeah, it can go on for quite a while.
All right. Christopher Lee only has 16 spoken lines in the entire film, and they're all in the first 10 minutes of the film.
Yep, his first line is "I am Count Dracula,"
Yeah.
with his British flair. This is not a Transylvanian, Hungarian, Romanian count. He's basically a British count. I don't know how that works, but it does.
I don't either.
Christopher Lee doesn't have a lot of lines in any of the Hammer Dracula movies.
No, he doesn't. No. On several occasions, Christopher Lee complained about the contact lenses he had to wear for the shock scenes. Not only were they quite painful, but he couldn't see a damn thing, he said.
Yeah, the contacts get more what's the word I'm looking for? They look better in each movie forth, but I think he sees less as they go forth as well too, if that makes any sense what I just said. We're taping this thing really late at night and it's been a long weekend, so I'm kind of just in la world. In other words, the contact lenses sucked, but they look very, very well on screen.
While running toward the vampire woman, he ran too far past the camera on the first take because he couldn't see. So he ran right on past the camera even. Peter Cushing did the stunt where he leaps over a banister himself. He insisted on doing so against the studio's concerns that he might injure himself. Well, good for him, doing his own stunts.
Yeah, he did his own stunts.
In the U.S., here's why the name was changed to Horror of Dracula in the United States, to avoid confusion with the classic from 1931. This was a real concern since that version was still being booked in the theaters at the time.
That makes a little bit more sense.
And this went on until the shock theater package of classic Universal horror movies was released to television, which was probably the mid 60s.
Don't know about that one.
So they would actually screen the original Dracula up until the 60s. That's sort of cool. The cape worn by Christopher Lee was discovered in 2007 in a London costume shop during its annual inventory. How the hell did that happen? It'd been missing for 30 years and is believed to be worth around 50 grand. Lee was contacted to verify its authenticity.
Did he verify it?
I guess. I don't know. Guess so. All's Count Dracula did in this movie, besides them few speaking parts, was assorted snarls and hisses. He had a good hiss, didn't he?
Yes, he did.
Really.
He gets better as Dracula as the Hammer films move along, I do think, though.
Yeah. According to Christopher Lee's autobiography, he received only 750 pounds for his portrayal as Dracula. He also states that this movie eventually grossed 25 million in the US.
Well, there we go. You was asking how much money it made. Christopher Lee gave you the answer.
The horse-drawn coaches in this movie were authentic historical carriages driven by George Mossman. He established his own museum of these vehicles in Luton in 1954. And with 63 original horse coaches from the 18th, 19th, and 20th century, it's currently the largest collection of such vehicles on display in the UK. That's sort of cool. All them
Yeah,
old
you could tell they
coaches
looked
like
very
that.
authentic in the movie. It did not look like props.
Christopher Lee only has 7.5 minutes of screen time throughout the whole film.
Yeah, this movie's more about Van Helsing than it is Dracula. Dracula just sort of plays the background for all the characters.
It says here, this is the first time Peter Cushing and Christopher Lee are top billed in any theatrical film. The last would be The Satanic Rites of Dracula from 1973,
And
which
boy,
we
do
will
I
be
ever love that movie.
we'll be covering that probably soon.
Yeah, let's cut in a minute. And so our goal here is we're going to try to cover these Hammer Dracula films in order for the first time. Unfortunately, we already covered Brides of Dracula, but it's not really a true sequel, so we're not missing anything. And you can always go back and listen to that one when it's the right time. So that's our goal. We're going to cover all Hammer Dracula movies now in order. We'll see how this works.
According to Christopher Lee, he tried to play the character of Dracula according to his theory of the loneliness of evil. He had developed this theory after reading the original novel. In Lee's view, Dracula feels lonely and does not actually want to survive, but continues existing because he feels he has no choice.
That actually makes a lot of sense to me.
Yes, it does. Terrence Fisher, the director, added a sexual subtext to Dracula's seduction of female victims. In his view, Dracula preyed upon the sexual frustrations of his women victims. He viewed Mina as an unhappy and sexually frustrated housewife who seeks sexual release in her relationship with Dracula. So basically, she wanted to bone Dracula.
Yeah, well, that's sort of the whole thing of Dracula is seduction and seduce, I guess.
He did a great job as being, like the romanticized version of Dracula for sure.
Definitely did, yes. First time we saw that part of the character appear.
Yeah. In the novel, Abraham Van Helsing is an elderly professor. He is the mentor of the novel's vampire hunters in the film. Van Helsing is reimagined as a younger vampire hunter. At the time of his casting, Peter Cushing was in his 40s and did not want to use heavy makeup to appear as a frail old man. He's always looked sort of older, though, anyway, I think.
Agreed.
Even in his earlier movies.
Yeah, he does. He does look older.
This was such a huge hit internationally that the following year, Christopher Lee was hired to go to Italy and essentially recreate his Dracula character for the Italian comedy Uncle Was a Vampire from 1959. What was that, a TV show?
No, it was a movie.
It was a movie?
Yep.
Seen it?
It might be in my Euro
Oh,
Christopher Lee box set up here.
Why does that not surprise
I got 7 Christopher Lee movies. Actually, I'll pull this thing down and show it to everybody. This is too good not to show off. Look at this big, huge box.
Oh, wow. That's cool.
And there's actually a volume 2 coming out here eventually. This does feature one of my favorite movies of all time, Crypt of the Vampire with Christopher Lee. So this is available from Severin Films and it's still out. And it even comes with soundtracks. So yeah.
So is it just all the Hammer films? that he
No,
was in?
it's Euro trash is sort of what we call it, from Christopher Lee. These are movies that just did not get they're not well known. They're
Okay.
more known in Europe than the United States. Some of them are crap, others are actually pretty good. He played vampires and Dracula in several other movies, including the Jess Franco Dracula, which we will talk about at a later date.
Peter Cushing eventually played Van Helsing or a descendant in 5 movies total,
Including the Brides of Dracula that did not have Christopher Lee or Dracula in it.
Van Helsing, played by Peter Cushing, doesn't turn up until 23 minutes into the movie.
That's when he shows up at the end demanding a meal, and the guy don't want to feed him.
When the film was shown on British TV in 1987, a few scenes had to be trimmed before the broadcast. The most significant was the staking of Lucy Homewood.
That was sort of brutal for the 50s, I guess. I don't know why they'd have to cut it out of TV in the 80s, but so be it.
Harper's Bazaar lists The Horror of Dracula as the best British film of all time.
That's saying a lot.
Yeah, for sure.
I don't know if it's the greatest British movie of all time, but I don't know.
The film repeatedly states that the Castle Dracula is located next to Klausenburg. Klausenburg is an alternate name for the city of Cluj-Napoca, the 4th most populous city in Romania. During the 19th century, the city served for a while as the capital of the Principality of Transylvania.
He certainly has a great Transylvanian accent in this movie.
He does, huh?
Yeah. I am Dracula. I can't do a good Christopher Lee Dracula impersonation.
Jimmy Sangster, the film's only screenwriter, decided to remove Dracula's shape-shifting powers in this adaptation. He felt that they added a fairy tale element to the Dracula story and instead wanted the film to be grounded in reality. In the US, the movie was released on a double bill at drive-ins with The Thing That Couldn't Die from 1958. I don't think I've ever seen that. You ever seen that?
Never even heard of that.
I've heard of it, but I don't think I've ever seen it. I've seen a poster of the drive-in poster for it. Film takes place in 1885. Screenwriter Jimmy Sangster threw out his original copy of Dracula, thinking it was of little value, much to his later regret.
Hell yeah.
Let's see here. Although it was thought that Horror of Dracula was the first time vampires featured elongated fangs in a film, 6 years earlier, a Finnish film featured longer canines in its main character. It was released in 1952, entitled The White Reindeer. That don't sound like a Dracula movie or a
Never heard of
vampire
White
movie.
Reindeer. I'm falling behind, I guess.
Falling behind on your vamps, dude.
Don't know about the White Reindeer. Or white, right, whatever I just said.
According to this film, vampire victims have the same symptoms as anemia patients. Typical symptoms include feeling tired, weakness, shortness of breath, and a poor ability to exercise.
That sounds like they're describing me.
Ah,
Maybe it's because I am vampire.
ooh. When Jonathan Harker meets Dracula, there appears to be a statue of Pazuzu, the demon from The Exorcist from 1973.
I have noticed that.
I didn't notice that. I'm going to have to go back and look at that. What is it, like right there at the base of the steps when he's coming down?
Something like that.
Oop, was that a spoiler? I'm sorry.
Yeah. You just
The film's shooting started on November 1st, 1957. Principal photography was completed on Christmas Eve, 1957. Following some additional special effects, filming was completed on January 3rd of 1958. So that was pretty quick.
It was indeed.
Miles Mollison, who played the loopy Undertaker, previously appeared as an Undertaker in The Dead of Night from 1945.
Yeah, that's the guy I said I thought was funny. He did a really good job. Need a little bit of a sense of humor in this very, very strict and straight movie. He did a good job with it.
Included among 1001 movies you must see before you die, edited by Steven Schneider. Well, I've seen it, so I guess I can die now.
I guess you can.
All right. Sir Christopher Lee is one of only 2 actors to play both Dracula and Frankenstein's monster, having played the monster in The Curse of Frankenstein, 1957.
Indeed,
the other is Bela Lugosi, who played Dracula 1931, and Abbott and Costello meet Frankenstein and Frankenstein's monster in Frankenstein Meets the Wolfman from 1943.
You didn't think I didn't know that?
I'm sure you did.
Well, I did know that. You should have asked me.
All right. Like most of all the other Hammer films, it was filmed at Bray Studios in Berkshire, England.
Well, make sure you pronounce it right this time.
Bray, it's Bray, right?
I'm not going to say it wrong.
How you saying it?
I ain't saying it. You say it wrong.
Well, it's spelt Bray, so I don't know.
Send all the hate mail to Brett.
Didn't somebody comment on that before?
Yes, send all the hate mail to Brett.
Oh, shit. Sorry if I'm pronouncing it wrong. The character of Tanya is introduced as Lucy's surrogate niece and Lucy's first intended victim as a vampire. Despite the key involvement of Tanya in Lucy's subplot, character simply disappears following Lucy's death. Bye-bye.
Yeah.
All right, let's see here. Dracula's coffin had a big cross on it.
Yeah, and it was white.
Well, aren't crosses supposed to ward off vampires? How could he get into his coffin? There's a big cross on it.
They don't affect me, so maybe they didn't affect Dracula. Done now. It affected the minion vampires. They all got cross marks burned on them.
The opening scene of Dracula's coffin without the blood was knotted in Young Frankenstein. I love that movie.
We were talking about that at work the other day. I haven't seen that movie in 30 years, I don't think. Means it's 2023, so probably 30 years the last time I watched that movie.
Peter Cushing and Christopher Lee would later go on to be in Star Wars movies. Lee's role was Count Dooku and
Count Dooku. Don't say that wrong or I'm going to beat you.
Dooku.
Not Uku, Dooku.
Dooku. I said Dooku.
You're saying it wrong.
Dooku. Cushing's role was the Grand Moff Tarkin.
You actually said that right.
The inn's use of garlic is traditional folklore repellent for vampires. They had it hanging everywhere too.
They did. They called it
like
garlic flowers, I think, in this.
it was everywhere for sure.
Yeah, it was everywhere. Ouch. I just smushed my foot.
All right. The ending scene of The Ring Left Behind would also be used at the end of the 1980 film Flash Gordon, though that ending has a twist.
What are you talking about?
The ending scene of The Ring being left behind.
They put it in Flash Gordon?
I guess they used it in Flash Gordon. I never did like that movie anyway.
Oh, it's got Ming the Merciless in it. That's all I can tell you.
The voice of Kiss?
Yes. So I'm going to go over some of the home media information on this movie. It was first released on DVD in 2002, which was basically with no features. There was nothing else there. And we would never see this thing on Blu-ray until I think it was 2012. Hammer announced that they'd restored the film and it was released on a 3-disc double play Blu-ray in the United Kingdom in 2013. And it contained the restoration version, which we haven't gone over, I don't think, yet. And there was also previously lost footage that they got from Japan.
Yep.
So all of this came out in a lot of documentaries. This thing was loaded, but it never came out in the United States. The only way you could get this thing is to import it and have a region-free Blu-ray player, which I was always too cheap to buy and always worried if I did get one that it actually wouldn't work. So we never got this thing on Blu-ray for years and years in the United States. Well, Warner Brothers, who mysteriously has the domestic rights to it, and the British Film Institute finally decided to throw this thing out on a special Blu-ray for us. And here it is. After all these years, Horror of Dracula finally on Blu-ray. And it was exclusive to the Warner Archive collection. What does that mean? Well, it means there was absolutely no special features, no commentary tracks, and not even the trailer. It's just the movie only. So all those special features are still locked away on the UK Blu-ray, which was actually released by Lionsgate, who apparently have the British rights to the film now. But this was a restored copy. Let me think about how to explain this. I am not happy with the way this Blu-ray looks. It is too bright, and the contrast seems to be way oversaturated on it. I actually feel that the original DVD looks better than the Blu-ray. So I'm not real happy with the release. Even though it's restored from the actual British whatever version they did, British Film Institute's 2007 restoration. That's the word I was looking for. But yeah, I'm not real happy with the look of it. I think the DVD almost looks better. So this is a surprising twist of fate, maybe, but that's my take on it. I'm not real happy with this release. And maybe one of these days I will actually get the UK version and see what it looks like. So what do you think of that?
I didn't think it was too bright when I watched it on Max. I watched it on Max. It didn't seem too bright. Maybe you should try watching it on there.
Well, it's probably the DVD version that you're seeing on Max, because it was actually A lot of these, they will master them into
They upscale them.
They upscale them to HD upscale them, but yeah, this is actually the restored version that seems too bright. So,
that's probably off the master print, So,
and it was also missing the great add-ons that they found in the Japanese version, which lasted for about maybe 10 seconds, which was all it was him disintegrating, which you mentioned earlier.
yeah.
And the reason why Warner Brothers said that they could not sync it along with the soundtrack, and it would have looked weird and sounded
For
weird.
that long,
yeah, they did not include it. But they did, interestingly enough, restore the original Universal International logo onto it, which apparently was not on the DVD. I don't remember. But I do have a copy of this on Vudu, and I've watched it on Vudu many times since it wasn't available on Blu-ray, and it is a HD copy, and it looks really good as well on Vudu. So
yeah, it looked really good on Max. So
if you're want to complete your set, buy this, because it's going to go out of print if it hasn't already, and it's going to be worth a lot of money. A lot of people were upset that they didn't ship this thing off to the Scream Factory and let them restore it and put all the extras, but this is the direction that Warner Brothers went. As long as we waited for this, at least we got it. But like I said, the results are a mixed bag.
okay.
Back to you, Brett.
So I guess I'm just going to go ahead and give my thoughts of this movie. I remember seeing this. I was probably when it came out on DVD. Did it come out? It didn't come out on VHS, did it?
Probably. I remember seeing it on TV probably before anything else.
Maybe it was on TV, but it was probably the late 80s or early 90s when I first.
That would have been about right, I think.
And it's probably on
TV. I think I saw the other Dracula Hammer films before this one. Not all of them. I'm just saying, I think I saw some of the other ones first.
Yeah.
Because this one was, even though it was a bigger release in the 50s, I think the ones that came out in the 60s and the 70s got wider distribution.
Yeah.
If that makes any sense.
Exactly. But anyway, Christopher Lee, Peter Cushing did great jobs in this. Great soundtrack score.
The score is wonderful.
Very, very dark for sure.
And very iconic.
Very well. And all the female actors in it, they all did a great job. All very beautiful women. And yeah, I like this movie for sure. Had a hell of a time finding it.
Yeah, like I said, it's not in distribution as much as some of the other lesser known Hammer Draculas.
It's on Prime, but you got to rent it or buy it off of Prime.
You can get it on Vudu, but you do have to buy it off of there as well. So. I guess they said it's on Max now, but Max has most of the Warner Brothers stuff on it, coming and going. Probably was there from Halloween.
And who knows how long it'll even stay on.
Probably disappear until next Halloween once they start cycling the Christmas movies through. Because streaming can only have so much. They can't contain entire libraries, because otherwise people will watch everything, cancel. So they got to cycle shit back and forth. It's just good business, I guess. That's why I say buy physical media. That way you can watch this thing anytime you want to, or buy it on Vudu, because I've yet to ever lose a movie on Vudu, and I've been dealing with them since they first opened. Don't depend on streaming.
Well, I guess I'm going to rate this movie then, and then I'll hear
for it. Then I'll give my views.
Your view there. I'm going to give it a 4 out of 5. Just Good vampire Dracula movie for sure. One of my favorites.
Yeah, I guess it's my turn. So I've seen this movie probably 7,300 times, to quote Scarlett from earlier today. Honestly, I wasn't in the mood to watch it for this week, but I did. Enjoyed it again. I think I'm still a little sad that there's no special features, there's no commentary, there's nothing there but just the movie. There are some different features on some of the Hammer stuff that cover the movie, but there's really not a lot of information out there that's anything extraordinary about this. Like Prince of Darkness, which would come out in 1966. That one, there's a lot more out there, and Christopher Lee starts some controversy with it. It's just probably I don't know. This one's a different movie. It's sort of slow in places. It doesn't follow what I consider the actual story of Dracula. It makes its own canon as it goes. I don't take knocks away for that. Is it my favorite of the Hammers? I'm going to say probably not. I think Prince of Darkness is my favorite. This would probably be my second favorite. And then Satanic Rites of Dracula. So there's my top three. But being the vampire fan I am, the Christopher Lee fan I am, and Peter Cushing and Hammer fan, I will have to give this a 4.5.
Okay.
It is a little slow. There's really not much bad I can say about it other than it, like I said in the beginning of the show, it comes from a play. So I give it credit for being different.
Yes, it was definitely different.
It's definitely different. It's not very gory, which of course is made in the 50s. Dracula Prince of Darkness just definitely outranks it for me. So definitely recommend this if you haven't seen it. I'm sure most people watching this probably have. If you haven't, definitely watch this. And you don't really have to watch these in order because they don't really follow much of a canon. They're sort of like the Halloween movies. They just sort of jump around from place to place.
Yeah.
But definitely this movie inspired a generation of vampire movies to come with, like you said, with the fangs and the red contact eyes and the handsome vampire seducing. So definitely a 4.6. I just raised it.
Ooh.
4.6. I may have given this a 5 at other times. I don't know.
The blood too, it had pretty decent blood in it. It was that bright pinkish hue blood, but
Well, that's all they could use in England back then, or they would get banned.
Yeah, they couldn't make it look.
I'm sure at some point I've given this a 5, but tonight we're going to give it a 4.6.
Okay.
I don't think this was the best episode we've done, but it is what it is, folks. At least we didn't ramble on like we did for the last episode for 20 minutes before we got to the movie.
Yeah.
We rambled too much last week, but some people like that, other people don't.
So we switch it up.
We switch it up this week.
Some days we rant, some days we don't.
Well, when you got more to talk about with a movie, you can talk about the movie. When you don't have a lot of content, then you're going to have to ramble on a little more.
Exactly. All right. Well, I guess that's it for Horror of Dracula.
Horror, not horror.
Horror?
Yeah.
Okay. Horror of Dracula. Unless you got anything else, Carl.
I have nothing else to add on this
All
one.
right.
My biggest complaint is this damn Blu-ray, which I'm not very satisfied with.
All right. So,
maybe someday a 4K will come out that will fix all that.
hopefully.
You
All
don't
right,
know in this
everybody.
day and age.
Thanks for watching, listening. Check us out on all the social medias and hitting that like and subscribe on the YouTube, Apple reviews. Haven't had one of them in a while. So give us a hand, get us up there in that higher up there in that algorithm. So
Yeah, and subscribe to YouTube. We need 500 people.
actually we need 1,000 to be able to go mobile live.
Well, crap. We need that within 1 year if we're going to go mobile live from the Texas Frightmare weekend.
We can always go Facebook live, I guess, and then what if
Convert
we
it.
go Facebook live and then simulcast it onto YouTube
Me
from
no
Facebook?
savvy. I'm not the engineer you are.
I'll have to figure that out. I'll have to see. All right, everybody.
Engineer Brett.
That's it. Stay evil, everybody.
Yeah.